On August 8th and 9th, 1969, the Manson family, on orders from their leader, murdered pregnant actress Sharon Tate and four other victims at 150 Cielo Drive. A day later, a wealthy grocery store owner Leno and Rosemary LeBlanc. Although the majority of the family members who took part in the massacre was condemned to death after being tried and convicted, the state of California reversed its decision on the death penalty in 1972, commuting their sentence to life imprisonment. Manson and his followers would ultimately claim they had killed a total of 35 people and buried their bodies in the desert. Whatever remains to be true, the random and brutal acts of violence committed by the Manson and his hippie communities turned murderers ended a decade of love and continues to haunt and confound the world. Here are some of the key members of the Manson family who convicted and committed murders in the summer of '69. Not only the Tate and LeBlanc murders, but also those of the musician Gary Hyman and ranchhand Donald J. Susan Atkins murdered Sharon Tate. Born on May 7, 1948, in San Gabriel, California, Susan Atkins was born to alcoholic parents. A shy child, Atkins was left vulnerable as her family life continued to deteriorate. After her mother died of cancer, Atkins' father eventually abandoned her and her brother, bouncing from various family relatives' homes. Atkins met Manson in 1967 and asked her to join his commune. Believing Manson was Jesus, Atkins began and to be an adult follower. She was charged with murdering Tate and later admitted she was unsure of why she did it. Although she ended up expressing remorse, she was denied parole. She succumbed to brain cancer in 2009. Leslie Van Houten murdered Leno and Rosemary LeBlanc. Born August 23, 1949 in Los Angeles, Leslie Van Houten began using drugs at 15 and ran away from home, only to return briefly to finish high school. Her mother forced her to have an abortion at 17, and she eventually fled to the hippie commune where she found her way to Manson and became a heavy user of LSD and other psychological drugs. Van Houten was only 19 when she was charged of murdering the LeBlancs. Over the years, she has been denied parole but may get another shot next January 2020, her 20th attempt. Part of the reason she has continually been rejected is due to her blaming Manson for her actions. Patricia Carwinkle participated in the murders of Sharon Tate and Rosa Leno LeBlanc. Born on December 3, 1947 in Los Angeles, Patricia Carwinkle grew up an insecure, overweight child who was bullied in school. After graduating from high school, she considered being a nun, but decided instead to attend college, only to drop out after one semester. Only shortly after she met Manson, the two had sexual relations. At 21, she was convicted of brutally stabbing Flogger 28 times and Rosemary 16 times, writing death to pigs in the victim's blood. She also participated in stabbing Leno, who had already died at the hands of the Manson family member Charles Tex Wilson. Denied parole more than a dozen times, Carwinkle has made recent claims that Manson has been abusing her before the multiple murders occurred. Charles Watson participated in the murders of Sharon Tate, Rosemary, and Leno LeBlanc. Born December 2nd, 1945 in Farmsville, Texas, Charles Tex Watson was an honor student and athlete. He attended the University of North Texas, joined a fraternity, and eventually got a job as a baggage handler at an airline in 1967, allowing him access to free airfare. Taking advantage of the free ticket, he flew to Los Angeles, where he immersed himself in drugs and the music scene. It was It was there that he met some of the Manson family women who introduced him to Manson at the infamous Spahn Ranch. Leading the charge in the Tate and LeBlanc murders, Watson claimed he was the devil. After the murders, he escaped to Texas and resisted being extradited to California for 9 months. Eventually, he was convicted of the murder and is currently serving a life sentence in Sacramento, California. He has since turned to religion, becoming a minister, and entered a business degree. Bobby Bisciotti murdered Gary Hyman. Born November 6, 1947, in Santa Barbara, California, Bobby grew up in a large Catholic family. At 15, he was sent to reform camp for delinquent behavior and soon after fled to Los Angeles and San Francisco, getting involved in the music scene. It was during this time he befriended and moved in with Hyman, who was a Manson follower. By the time the Tate murders occurred, Bisciotti was already in jail for July 1969 murder of Hyman, who was stabbed to death in orders by Manson for not paying the letter money he felt he was owed. Serving a life sentence, Bisciotti spent his time creating music and selling art. Steve Clam Gorgon murdered Donald Shea. Born July 13, 1951, Clam Gorgon was an artistically inclined high school dropout who was involved in petty crime before he joined the Manson cult. Long before Manson and his followers found shelter at Spahn Ranch, Gorgon was working odd jobs there, where he met ranch hand stuntman Shea. Believing Shea had snitched to the police about the Manson family crime activities, Manson ordered Gorgon to follower Bruce Davis to murder Shea on August 26, 1969. Although Gorgon was originally sentenced to death, and the preceding judge reduced the sentence to life in prison because he felt Gorgon was too intelligently impotent and high on drugs to have planned the murder. Gorgon received parole in 1985 after revealing to the authorities the location of Shea's remains. Bruce Davis murdered Gary Hyman and Donald Shea. Born October 5, 1942, in Monroe, Louisiana, Bruce Davis was the editor of his high school yearbook and attended college in Tennessee for a few years before traveling to California in the early 1960s. He met Manson and some of the female followers in Oregon and eventually became Manson's right hand. Davis was present during the murders of Hyman and actively participated in the torture of killing Shea. Although he was temporarily on lame for a time, he turned himself into the authorities in 1970. Having become a preacher in prison, Davis is currently serving a life sentence and continuously denied parole. Linda Casablanca, born June 21, 1949 in Maine, Linda moved to Los Angeles in 1968. She met Manson through Catherine Gypsy Share and moved to Spahn Ranch with Manson and his followers. At first, Casablanca found Manson's message to be peaceful, but his tone eventually changed to one violence and paranoia. She was sent to 150 CeeLo Drive to assist in the Tate murders, but never went inside the house, as Watson told her to stay outside the residence. She also stayed in the car during the LeBlanc murders, eventually leaving the scene with Manson. Casablanca eventually turned herself in and became a lead witness and received immunity. Lynette Squeaky Fromme. Although she was one of Manson's most trusted associates, Lynette had no hand in the LeBlanc murders. Born on October 22, 1948, Santa Monica, California, she was not present at either murder scene. However, she was a fixture in front of Los Angeles courthouse during Manson's trials, remaining loyal to him throughout. After Manson was convicted, he was moved from prison to prison and moved from town to town to be near him. In September 1975, she pulled a gun on President General Ford in Sacramento. She was convicted of attempted assassination and sentenced to life in prison. The trial ended with Furman throwing an apple at the face of the prosecution attorney, knocking off his glasses. In December 1987, from Murray, I don't know how to say her name, sorry guys, escaped from West Virginia prison on an attempt to meet up with Manson, who she heard had developed cancer. She was captured and imprisoned until 2008 when her parole was granted and was released a year later.